Hello, and welcome to the Third Serve podcast, where I will not talk about the tennis pros, only the tennis lows. I'm your host, Ben Adams, certified washed-up tennis player, former high school star, and pickleball enthusiast. And the topic of the day is introducing myself and this podcast, and talking about the I formation, and why it's always really confused the hell out of me. So first off, I want to thank you to all the 10 people that are listening, friends, family, Facebook friends that I invited. I'm going to tell you at the gate, if you don't like tennis, you're not going to like this podcast. I mean, if you just want to listen to my voice, go for it, but I'm talking tennis here. As for professional tennis, I do not care about pro players or tournaments or anything at all. So the Rafa fans, I don't care. I really don't. I mean, Monfils is cool, but that's pretty much it. The point of this is to talk about tennis as a sport, as a game, as a discipline, and kind of just go over a few different tactics. So second off, I'm going to plug my stuff. I am a part-time blogger, ebook writer, and podcaster at thirdserve.net, the less than official home for less than professional tennis. I publish how-to guides for beginners, satire and funny news from time to time for regular tennis players, and opinion pieces on the current state of tennis as a sport for like organizations, and really I'm ranting about the USTA. If any of that catches your ear, please check out Facebook page and website, which I will have linked in the description. So let's fire straight into it. Today's podcast is about the I formation and its use at low to mid levels as a strategic tool and mind game against your average, like below 3.5 ranked player. For those who don't know the term, it's a double strategy where you and your partner line up in the center of the court before and during the point rather than on alternate sides like you normally would. It resembles a lowercase I, with the player on the baseline moving up and down between the baseline and the service line, and the netman acting as the dot, staying right at the net, only moving to poach 50-50 shots. So if you can imagine the setup, this is actually really risky and aggressive strategy, as if the return comes near the middle, the netman is in a position to just slam it, destroy it, pretty much ending the point if a weak ball or a low ball comes their way. The baseline player is there for backup, returning lobs and shots down the line and stretching the court as much as they can to catch the balls that come their way. It works best in quick shootout points where the netman gets involved early. So, bing, bang, boom, serve, return, and pretty much points over, whether you get the ball or not. However, this strategy is very risky and hinges pretty much entirely on strict execution and communication, and generally this execution fails through the three following scenarios. So I'm going to go through and talk about why I formation doesn't work for some people, why it may not be working for you, and why it sure does not work for me. So if your opponent hits a strong shot, overwhelming you and your partner, it results in a weak, short return. So to respond, your opponent can hit a passing shot down the line and stretch the baseline player too far, or nail the netman with a direct shot, which is my favorite option. So good players with strong topspin heavy strokes generally counter the I formation by doing this, making it hard to pull off if you're playing against someone who is a lot better. This isn't a cheese tactic to get at a better player and win a couple easy points. Generally, if they see you trying to do this, it's over. The second scenario where the I formation falls apart is when the net player goes for a 50-50 situation, moving to the forehand or backhand side as the opponent hits their return, and basically guessing where it will go and jumping in ahead of time. If the guess is wrong and it goes past the netman, it leaves the baseline player to try and save the point, putting the team off balance and giving the mental and physical edge to your opponent, who now controls the flow of the point. Losing the 50-50 will not always result in losing. However, the baseline player does not cover the return and keep the tempo of the point. It's going to be out of your hands, and it's going to rely on your opponent to win the point. It'll give them an opportunity to win, rather than keep it kind of neutral. So that's probably what happens most of the time, because when the I formation is pulled off correctly, you still only have a 50-50 shot of getting it. Unless you have a good read on your opponent, they have very predictable movement, or they have a slow wind up. You can tell, oh, they're definitely going forehand, and you kind of rush over there. The third scenario that I want to highlight where the I formation fails is when communication between players just fall apart. Now, the I formation is generally an agreed upon a tactic before the point even starts. Like, you're going to talk to them and say, hey, I put the finger up, we're going to do the I formation. And your partner goes, oh, okay, cool. You want your team to be on the same wavelength in order to execute this properly. But, like, say you're in the middle of the point, and this has happened to me all the time. I see this a lot at low levels of play. The net man gets to a ball, he hits a great shot, it snipes a return, you know? And he just kind of stays at the net. Sometimes they'll say, hey, I formation, or they'll yell at you. But now you're in this raggedy-ass I formation, off your step, waiting for a return. You guys aren't, like, in tune or aligned correctly. Y'all are just in the middle of the court. And it looks like the I formation, you put it in italics, man, because like you're stretched out and diagonal. Basically, if y'all aren't sharing a brain cell, there's no way you're going to be able to reach and stretch to the court effectively and be the backup that your partner needs. And it's going to be more likely for the game plan to fall apart if you just go in with a half-baked I formation. It's all or nothing. It can't be just a midpoint decision. I see that all the time, and it never works. It's really funny. I mean, I do it too, because, I mean, I think I want to play hero ball and just grab everything at the net, but it doesn't work. Those are the most, like, ways that I formation can fall apart. And so you kind of ask yourself, if this is just an easily exploitable weakness, and it depends on strict execution, which, you know, newsflash, you're not going to have when you're playing, like, a high school ball, 3-0, 3-5. You're still playing to get the last ball in, you know? And the strategy to destroy it is to hit the ball hard and get them off balance. So why would you, if it's so easily exploitable, why use the I formation? First of all, it's really, really cool if it works. Like, it looks sick. I really hesitate to go into the mind games, justify my saying it feels sick as an actual, like, strategy. But it is. It's such a mental game whenever you give the impression of dominance as a team, especially in doubles. Points end fast by the hand of the net player, who looks psychic, because if they win the 50-50 and choose the right area to go and hit a forehand or a backhand, you're moving before the player even hits the ball. And it's a power move, it's a dominant move to be able to execute this, especially multiple times. And it's so hype when a team pulls this off, and it's used in a way to take the momentum back or solidify momentum, as you aren't going to be able to take care of me because I'm the psychic, man. I know you're going to hit the ball and I'm going to be there every time. You can't even hit it away from me, and I'm sitting in the middle of the net. That's just a surface level perspective, and it's more akin to how some spectator would watch it. But the feeling is palpable if you're on the court. And if you're an emotive player, like I am, you can feel the momentum shift, like, hit really hard. You can legit win with the power of will and momentum at this lower level, because no one has the discipline and the practice to be able to shut it down. And I know I'm not giving enough credit, I think, to us mid-level players when I say stuff like this, but I don't know, that's from my heart. I really think that at the mid-levels, like before you get to 4-0, 4-5, even in some 4-0 leagues, tennis is such a crazy game. There are very few rules, and I think tennis has this identity of being, tennis is the way it is. It's had 100 years to develop its meta, and it's solved. You play this way and you win because you're the better player and you've hit more balls. But no, man, you can pull off some real cheesy stuff when you're playing an equally bad player, and like, I think the I formation is one of those things. And even though you don't see it as much at the mid levels because it's seen as a kind of a very exploitable tactic, it's so sick and it can totally be used. But I'm gonna say, like, straight out, when it doesn't work, you feel really stupid. Like, you're just chilling on the other side of the court, you stepped across your body fully committing, and it zooms like in the opposite alley. Like, where am I? What happened, man? And it's just really hard. It's really hard to be able to justify doing it again whenever it fails like that. That's what happens to me whenever I try to hit a down the line shot and it goes out. I don't want to hit another down the line shot because I'm scared, you know. So I don't want to play risky, play crazy if I think it's gonna happen, and that's how you really lose the game in general. So being able to do the I formation, be confident enough, that's so huge. One more knock against the I formation before I kind of switch gears and talk about a little bit more about how to execute it properly. 50-50s in tennis are weird. You know, I don't think 50-50s as far as go left or right maybe I'm really unlucky, this is like personal experience, but they never seem to work out a full 50% of the time. You know, like if you're going to be able to try to pull this off consistently, you got to have some serious reads and reactions to be able to get to the right side, or, you know, the side that your opponent's hitting it to before they hit it. And if you get mixed up and they hit it back, it's kind of over. You know, you've lost the edge and your opponent knows that you can't read them. I'm going to switch gears. I'm going to go into some of the positives of the I formation and how to actually get it to work on an executable level, rather than we be talking about it kind of as if it's a cool thing you see in a tennis TV show. So moving on to the next section, we're going to be going into a little more about the applications for the I formation and situations where it might work. This is a little more free-flowing. I'm going to admit I had the last section written down pretty much word for word. So here we're going to be a little more free with the format and just kind of talking about instances where I remember seeing the I formation, where it worked, where it didn't, and how it was executed. So first off, a little bit of background. I am maybe 4 years out from high school tennis, so a lot of this is coming from my memory and may not be entirely accurate. If you recognize you're playing in my descriptions, I'm not saying any names, but if you recognize a situation, I mean, I probably don't remember, so it's whatever. So I remember probably the first interaction I had with the I formation was earlier on in my tennis career. I think it was used to great effect by people that were a lot more athletic, generally, maybe the volleyball girls. I mean, every high school tennis team has a section of volleyball girls. They don't have a sport to do during the spring, so they do tennis because it's pretty much the easiest compared to something like starting softball or basketball. Tennis is a lot more beginner friendly in that regard. However, they generally are probably the best at the I formation starting out because it is kind of a beginner's tactic. They're also very athletic and they got the reactions down. And it's almost like playing the net in volleyball, like being right up there, because you kind of have to watch your opponent, make reads, and they would get a lot of shots based off of that, which really cemented my opinion that the I formation is fantastic as a beginner tactic if you combine it with at least some confidence and the realization it's not going to hit in every time, because it's just not. It's not built for that. It's built to be a tool that assists in your winning of a set. You can't use it every single time to win a set. It's not going to work that way, but it should be in your bag of tricks at least. Specifically, if I can kind of call back a on-the-court memory, I remember there was one team that was using it to great effect because their net man was really tall. And also one thing that really helps at the 335 levels is your height. That's just a natural, that's a natural positive, I guess. And I'm very jealous because I'm, and you know, this is a podcast. Y'all don't know me. I'm 6'6" and I'm the tallest person within this team. And unless you're friends or family, you can't tell me different. So he was very tall. Going back to the subject, he was very tall, and he would just kind of stand there, right in the middle of the net, and you hit it, try to go down the line, and he gets there, and he hit it down the line the other way. He wasn't reading, he wasn't guessing, he was just reacting, and his long arms just extended out. I think the way that we were able to get past it was by effective lobbing, and I'm gonna have a tennis third serve podcast about lobbing in the future. If you're seeing this in the future and it's already there, go check it out. But lobbing is really effective and kind of ignored because it seems like it's cheap. It's what beginners do. But lobbing has great effect in situations like these where the correct answer is to go down the line every time and just burn it down the alleys, but we couldn't do that. It would go out probably a third of the time, and if they're getting the ball anyway half the time, this doesn't work out. The math doesn't work. Yeah, lobbing was the key there. I remember they had the audacity to try and do an I formation while we were serving. You know, just I don't know who you think you are at this point, but you're supposed to do the I formation whenever your team is serving. That way you can set the pace for it, get a quick return, and they would get ready for my partner's serve, and the dude was just chilling right in the middle of the court. And to be fair, it worked. I'm not gonna lie on air here. It worked a couple times, and he hit it right at me at the net, and I did not have the reaction to be able to get it back. However, once you kind of crank up that serve, the I formation, what they were doing, it fell apart, because if you get a good serve in, then they no longer have the power here, because the netman is in the wrong place, straight up wrong place. If the return goes to me at the net, I have all of the court to hit it. It's great. I'm having a great time. It's a very fun game. Another situation where I think the I formation was very useful for us was while we were serving against very passive players. They were walls. Everyone's familiar with what I'm talking about, but it's the guy that sits there and gets everything back. Not necessarily hard, not in the best place, but they get it back, and usually they hustle. Off topic again, but I can't help it. One of my friends played singles for a long time against a wall. He was from a few towns over, and they were playing at district or some huge tournament that really people cared about. And I swear we counted it. They got to 30 to 40 hits in a row, like 1, 2, 3, just hitting it back and forth. It looked like they were rallying, like practice. And really, that's on both of them. If two walls get together, it's fun to watch for a while, but the more interesting aspect is seeing who stops first, who gets tired first. And we were going to get tired first, because these guys were athletes. They're getting the ball back, and the only way we could do it was to be aggressive and to make aggressive shots. And that's kind of the crux of why I think the I formation is a really awesome concept, because it's the pinnacle of risky, aggressive, but necessary to beat out some of the more, I'm not gonna say degenerate practices of tennis and styles of tennis, but definitely the lamer tennis styles. I'm gonna call them that. I'm gonna call them lame. And I'm sure some of you listening are lame players. I respect the hell out of you, man. It takes a lot to be a lame player, but you have to play aggressive. It's literally like rock, paper, scissors. And this analogy is probably not going to work out once I finish it, but I'm going to find a way. Cutting in from the editing process, and I did not explain this clearly at all, but it was kind of funny to hear me struggle through it, so enjoy this metaphor. So rock would be, let's call them the defensive lame players. Scissors would be the consistent, I would say, normal players. And then paper would be aggressive, risky players. So if you're playing as a risky player against the normal players, like playing normal and just kind of mixing up defensive and offensive, you're going to lose, because they're going straight. They're not winning every point, but you're losing more points than you should, because you're choosing to be risky and to go for things whenever you let the flow of tennis take over. But whenever you're playing against a defensive force, just a wall hitting the ball back every time, it's necessary to take those precautions, remove those precautions really, and play risky in order to take down the wall, man. That's all you gotta do. So what I was saying was, in general, what I want to take from my personal perspectives on how the mid-level of tennis should treat the I formation is use it against heavy defense, wall-like players. That's when you got to do it, to mix them up, show them something they may not see every day, and keep the pace in your favor rather than letting them take over the pace. Even if you lose a lot of easy shots, easy points that way, by getting too aggressive, hitting a shot you haven't really practiced a lot during your practice games. But just get out there, You don't want to use it against the normal, just playing it straight players. I'm going to call them what they are, the country club players. They have great fundamentals. They know how the flow of tennis works. Fantastic forehand, top spin. And when they see you going for something kind of dumb, like the I formation, they know what to do. And that when you play those people, that's when you got to play the actual tennis game. Yeah, so it's almost like a rock, paper, scissors in that aspect. And if that analogy does not translate over, I'm really sorry, because it would sound ridiculous. It probably sounds indecipherable. To kind of wrap things up, because I don't want to make this super long and just kind of rambly, I would like to talk about why you don't see the I formation at the high levels a little bit more, and why I think that's bad. So I don't watch a lot of doubles professional tennis. I don't watch a lot of professional tennis in general, just to be honest. However, from what I can see, the I formation is used effectively, but it's not fun. It's just another way of winning points easily. Because doubles tennis, even though I think it's more exciting, is very structured. To the net man must get the ball, and if you look at a lot of tape, it's going to show that most of the points come from the net man, and that's a good thing. That's a really good thing, and it spices up the game, but it plays into the narrative that tennis as a game is solved. And the I formation can be used to break up this monotony, but more than often than not, it serves in reinforcement. I think the true I formation, in the spirit of it, is going to be found at the lower to mid levels, where it's used to throw people off, play mind games, and to kind of break down different play styles based on its relative riskiness in comparison to normal playing at these levels. I think that's what makes it cool, and I would love to see doubles players take more risks in this aspect. However, in order to take risks in tennis, you have to have an enormous amount of self-confidence, even a larger amount of tennis balls that you've just practiced. Because self-confidence is going to come with practice, riskiness is going to come with self-confidence, and then when you fail at doing risky shots, you're going to lose some. And that's going to be the battle that you have to face. However, it changes your game once you throw in some crazy cool stuff like the I formation at these levels. And as a series on this podcast, I want to talk more about some of these interesting play styles, strategies, ways of playing that many people maybe wouldn't consider because it's not proper tennis. So yeah, hit me up. You can comment, email me about some, maybe just an anecdote about you playing tennis and you finding some random strategy that beat this one team. Or talk to me about what you feel are undeveloped areas of tennis strategy, doubles or singles, that they just work. Maybe they're not proper, maybe you're not supposed to do them technically. So let me know. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to plug my stuff real quick once again, but honestly, the content of this podcast is over. Stick around if you want to hear me talk about my stuff. I work at the Third Serve media, thirdserve.net, podcast blog, social media. It's pretty much my creation at this point. I've got about 10 followers on Facebook, and they are all my close friends and family. The goal of the website, pretty much the philosophy that I would like to go by when creating content, is that low mid-level play is really, really cool, and unfortunately tennis is dominated by everything but cool stuff. You see a lot of cool shots, a lot of compilations of best Wimbledon moments, best Wimbledon shots, but for the most part tennis feels very solved, and I want to take kind of a spotlight and put it on the interesting part of tennis, the part of tennis that are still being developed, how play is done at these unperfect levels, and really write blogs, talk on podcasts, get people in the studio. I've got a lot of friends that share this similar level of play style where we're not good by any means, but we can play in leagues and win, and we're probably around the 3-5, 4-0 level. But it's so much fun whenever you play bad, in a way, because it relieves some of the stress of playing by the book. And as much as I'd like to write a book about tennis, that would kind of defeat the point, because the more books we write about playing tennis, the more structured it gets, and the more that the quote-unquote meta of the game is solidified. And I think that we're missing a lot because we're not choosing to break through and try new, interesting, weird stuff. And yeah, that's my rant on tennis in general. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Thank you all for listening, and contact me if you have any suggestions, comments, rebuttals, concerns. I did that in the wrong order. But yeah, I will see you on the next podcast.